Yeah. We are sorry for the inconvenience. I mean, it's not very. I know it's not very comfortable for everyone.
Yeah, it's easier than flying across the world.
Yeah, right. So now the discussion is on record. I mean, I'm recording it, so we can start when you are ready.
Oh, am I running this? Okay.
Yeah. So I can just directly give you the floor, Peter, if you want to introduce the.
Thank you. Sorry, I just had coffee handed to me.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
So, yeah, I actually have to get back onto where is my screen here? Hang on. Okay. All right. So, I guess I would say then that I had a lot of fun reading, watching all the videos. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Anyhow. So this was a very interesting panel to try to conceive of in a unified way. But let me see if I can make some comments that will make. I have a few introductory things to say, just particular comments that came up to me for Aaron Samogi. I hope I'm not butchering that too badly. There are some people who claim that Swinze is a Taoist.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah. I don't agree with that, but yeah.
And I make that point, and actually, Manuel Stadler's comment also I ran into is very strange for me because I'm actually writing right now a book on the interpretation of Swinze.
Excuse me, can you hear Peter? Because I lost
his...
Yeah, me too. I lost the sound.
There? Now can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me go back then. So since I am writing something on the interpretation of Swinze in the West, I happen to be, since 2 days ago, writing on Father Amio and his translation of Swinze Bingpa in how it got to France in the 18th century. So I just happened to be, I was very surprised to hear him mention Father Amio's Swinze translation. And this very good book on that by Adam Farr, which just came out late last year, which is all about Father Amio's translation of Swinze's Art of War. So there is that, and also because of this book, I have been writing about just last week about the question of whether Swinze was Taoist. So as long as you know, that's fine. I was very interested to hear the comments about whether or not about the swordsmanship and about the Ming Dynasty interpretation. So I very much look forward to more of that because it's Yu Dao is a very important person in there. And I was hoping if you get the chance, if you could maybe give me your thoughts on why his book on staff fighting is called the Sword Classic, Jianjing, which is long baffling. Let me see if I can go through in turn then. The comments on Tai Chi, which I found very interesting. Ni hao dong. I was very interested when you raised this question, which to me, for all of us as martial artists, in particular for Olivier's comments at the end in his panel, raised this issue of the fighting between the Tai Chi masters, and the MMA fighters recently in China. This has been a very big issue for a lot of people that I have been following. And I must be fair and say that I am practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. So I work out in a mixed martial arts gym, and they're professional fighters. And so they sort of looked at me and sort of said, so we heard about this, what do you think? And I found myself having to sort of defend Tai Chi, but also, because I'm an academic, to try to frame Tai Chi in terms of modern constructions of Tai Chi Chuan. Which brings us to Olivier, of course, which I thought, who did such interesting production. Sadly, afterward, like, I don't do things like that. I should get some help. But this notion of the superhero, almost, and this comes back to something we had at an earlier conference when Megan Morris criticized me for saying that movies aren't real. In the sense that movies, and then she was right, that movies and these images and the production that we have of the representation of martial arts it has an effect. Whereas, in the Ming Dynasty, you have manuals, and you have xiaoshuo, you have novels. Modern times, we have videos, and we have television programs that show, someone like Xu Xiaodong beating up a Tai Chi master is, is it out of Shui Hu Zhuan? Is it out of Outlaws of the Marsh or the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, San Guo Yan Yi? How many fights are there in Shui Hu Zhuan where they're on the Lei Tai? And it's actually a staged performance for the hero to show something. And right now, we have to face the problem of the government of China has a very particular idea of how a martial arts master and Tai Chi master should be seen. And don't worry, I'm getting back to the issue of was it Koye Manuel's perspective on this, which is that we have this political power dynamic of demonstrating what's supposed to happen with martial arts, because it has effects, whether they're magical or staged. The power dynamic is very important, which I think gets me back to Manuel's stuff of trying to see this. I mean, I'm not a theory person, so and the more anyone knows me, the more they know that I'm really not a theory person, because I mean, I do it and I come out the other side, and I'm always the historian in the back saying, well, but that isn't true, for the data. But I think this notion of trying to conceive of violence and martial arts and Bataille's, the emotion of all of this is really important, because I have to say I couldn't put all of I was having trouble putting all of this together until I thought through Lu Gong's Tai Chi, this image we have of a physical fight and the emotion that surrounds it and the performance of that. And then we have these ideas about how it's supposed to transpire, what's supposed to happen. And then if it doesn't happen that way, we're all very, well, some of us are very satisfied, but power holders are very unsatisfied. And ultimately, that is, after all, if you want to go back to the strategic notion, particularly with respect to the sword fighting and the hard law. After all, if you're a great swordsman, you're supposed to win, even against the superior, bigger person. But when we have this, how do I say this? This clear notion about what the outcome of the fight is supposed to be, whether it's a performance or whether it's an actual fight, and it doesn't happen the way we want it to, then we have to either we complain about it. The Chinese government hasn't been very nice to Xu Xiaodong because he created this publicity, this performance, which other people have done too, and people were doing before him, that was contrary to the government's idea, contrary to the government's narrative about what was supposed to happen. So I think that's all I have to say to try to bring it together, and I think I'd rather let other people respond and maybe have their own comments now. So how do I just leave it open then, Laurent?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
And then I'll wake up a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time.
No, my wife was up before me, so. I don't know whether you want to respond or you have something else to look at that. I have to say I'm still digesting some of this.
Evidence. All right. Yeah. So yeah, we are like. Let me check. More than 14 participants now in the discussion. That's why you can see people. Yeah.
So I was leaving open the floor for someone to speak. So
right. Actually, I wanted to add some things about the Xu Xiaodong case. Actually, because it's a hot topic now in China and even in Europe, because we are talking about him a lot. And I think he's not very different than the martial arts masters of the beginning of the 20th century. During the Republican period, when they tried to how to say, to break with the ancient tradition with martial arts and these kinds of old rules about martial arts and the old thought. Actually, it reminds me a little bit about the interview of Wang Xiangzhai during I think it was in 1940 in Beijing, and he was talking about the martial arts efficiency, and he said, well, the tradition is not that efficiency actually, so we have to improve our way of training and to put the tradition into question regarding the martiality, regarding the act of fighting, So I think Xu Xiaodong is not very different than this kind of masters, or like Zhao Daoxin. I don't know if you have read about the interview of Zhao Daoxin. It was the same discourse on martial arts. So Xu Xiaodong, I think, didn't invent anything, but now it seems that because a religion or spirituality is based on the fact of believing on something, right? And the Xu Xiaodong is like he's deconstructing a belief about Tai Chi Chuan and about traditional martial arts. But what he's doing is not it's also martial arts. You know, it's about kicking and punching. So it's the same. Actually, in the end, it's the same.
Well, if you read Paul Bowman's book on deconstructing the martial arts,
yeah, right, yeah.
Then we come to the end that we don't actually have a definition, really. We have a process. We have very extensive theoretical construct, but it doesn't give us an agreed upon set of material. I think Aaron's sword, and this to me is much more, I can understand that, because it's a Ming Dynasty historically grounded construction, and the spirituality is not. I mean, I'm actually reading what's his name, Hao Qian's book on Daojiao Yushu, Taoism and martial arts. And a big issue I always had was that this Wang Jiangnan's biography of what's his name? So the biography of Wang Jiangnan, which is the locus classicus for this notion of soft and hard. I was very uncomfortable with that for a number of years, because I thought, is this it? Is this the only? Is this the locus classicus? Is this where this notion of Neijia of Neichuan versus Weichuan is that it? And his book basically says yes. That's he goes through all the data on Zhang Sanfeng, and says, there is the Song Dynasty. Zhang Sanfeng is not the Zhang Sanfeng of Tai Chi Chuan. But then we have to ask the question of why does the early dynasty require a Song Zhang Sanfeng? And so it seems like this discourse, as you say, is just continuing, and I almost feel frustrated that it isn't being solved. It's not being, or resolved. I know that we don't try to give us something to do with Tai Chi. How is Tai Chi? This is not his words, but how is it not flawed? If it's a martial art and it doesn't allow you to win a fight, how is that an effective martial art? That's the question I have myself. When she goes to the gym every day, and she took a Tai Chi class in the park, and she said, I got more exercise walking to the park and walking back than doing Tai Chi. So she stopped, and she said to me, what was I supposed to get out of that? And I had no answer for her, because she was also doing her aerobics and her games and things like that. So, but I don't know if any of you have I would love it if someone had a better definition of martial arts. I see Aaron like.
Excuse me, just I want before you start, Aaron. Yes. Someone has some sound or a noise in the background of. I don't know what is it, but.
Maybe this is me, because I'm sitting in the cafeteria of the library.
Okay. Please, can you?
I'm sorry for that. I can, if everyone is talking, I will
No, you can continue to listen, but please can you just put on mute?
Yeah.
And when you want to talk, you just active again the. Thank you very much.
Okay. Aaron, you were gonna.
Yes, I have some ideas. I don't think that I have the answer to your questions, but if you let me just, touch the topic. And hi, everyone. And sorry, I'm in a HEMA training camp, so there might come some battle noise from the background. I try to find a quiet corner, but it's possible that there will be some disturbances. Okay, so sorry in advance. What I wanted to say is how I see things. We have this difficulty by finding the how can we define martial arts is that basically martial arts were created as a means of violence. I think that's clear. But when they leave the battlefield, when they leave the field of self-defense and become an activity, a recreational activity of the average citizen or the average people, or a hobby, or maybe some more serious thing than a hobby, but still like not a profession for someone, then they can easily lose their martial efficiency, as we can see. I mean by efficiency that the simplest way to apply violence. And I don't think that we shouldn't call a practice a martial arts because it's not efficient in a violent situation. But how I see things, that is the cause of why we struggle by the definition of martial arts, because these practices changed and have become a cultural phenomenon, maybe even a pop cultural phenomenon, and we have to be very careful to still be inclusive and don't exclude practices that are not efficient as a means of violence, but they are still part of the martial arts culture as a cultural phenomenon. So that's my opinion on this problem, on this question. I don't know how you see it.
Well, I run into this problem because I'm not a very good martial artist myself, but I've been doing it for a very, very long time. So then I like being inefficient and not excluding myself. But I always have in the back of my mind this question. It seems in my life I go between martial arts. If you say you're doing HEMA, it's obviously not a, the thing is, if you have a sword, even a, padded sword, and you're fencing with someone, it has some efficiency. It has some, well, if you have a sword, it seems very clearly to be a martial art. It's hard when you have the sword. I mean, I got yelled at when I was taking Tai Chi Jian when I was in Beijing. And my teacher yelled at me and she said, it's a sword, not a stick. Because, if I'm doing this like, very slow and then, and yes, it was a sword. Sorry, actually it was Tai Chi Dao at that time. If it's, I like the inclusivity, but I have a problem from the perspective of definitions. I'm as I said, I'm not a theorist, so I read Paul's book, and it was very informative, and it's very sophisticated, and it doesn't answer my question, which is, if I'm talking about a phenomena, and perhaps Olivier could address this too, which is, at what point is one phenomena not this phenomena, it's a different phenomena? It's how do I, I'm fundamentally a military historian, And it's very easy for me to break between my military history work and when I teach my class on tea and history. You know, when I do tea, when I do food, these are very separate disciplines, and I get a very different reaction to them. And one of the reasons I do food and tea is because everybody's very happy to hear about food and tea, and everybody gets very angry with me when I talk about war. And then if I talk about martial arts, nobody in my department wants to hear about that. It's not serious. My chair waved off my book on Chinese martial arts history. He said, well, so he has a definition implicit. My historian colleagues have definitions implicit in their minds that make things different, that separate them, and value them differently. And the anthropologist we have is he's very good with martial arts. He's a boxing historian, not historian. He talks about boxing and he has no problem. But the historian, the discipline I'm in, requires some distinction. And you can get a book published now on martial arts subjects, which is great. You couldn't do that not that long ago. But then the question is, what is it? And so it seems like any time somebody writes anything that has martial arts in the title, in an article or something, it gets I get a request to review it. And then I have to say, is this something I should be reviewing? Because I mean, I don't. So I mean, I guess I pose this back to all of you, which is, I see myself as a Chinese historian and a military historian, and maybe not a martial arts historian. I can do Chinese martial arts history, and maybe I will do something which is not Chinese martial arts history soon, because I think a lot of what I said a few years ago about the modern history of martial arts is maybe wrong. But at some point, I don't know. I want a definition. I mean that, you know, Paul would tell me I'm crazy, or read his book, and I've read it. So I'm just not as comfortable with that open-ended thing. I mean, I admit there could be bad martial artists. So maybe Xu Xiaodong is beating up bad martial artists. I think that's fair. I don't expect to win a fight. I'm not a good martial artist. You know, but what about the practice? Can we somehow separate this? Can we, you know, wushu as a modern concept where it is this very performative thing? And if you've been watching some of the videos that Paul Bowman has been doing interviews, and he did the one on, I forget the guy's name, I believe he's German, on Taekwondo. And that guy, he says it's terrible now. All the performance Taekwondo is acrobatics. He says there's no self-defense left anymore. It's terrible. So I wrestle with this all the time. I retreat into history because it's easier. You know, like I said, I can understand Aaron's work much better because, okay, it's historical. But, you know, even Olivier, when he's doing this performance, and that makes sense to me. And Ludong, when he's trying to figure out a way to see this, you know, if everything, it's I don't know. I keep hoping for someone to give me a better idea. Maybe that's why I keep coming to these conferences. And if anyone ever does, then I'll stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for the. Yeah.
Someone supplied me in the Udo Monet. Thank you.
Yeah.
So okay, it's up to you. I you know, tell me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Wudong, I think you raised your hand, right? You wanna add something?
Gonna have to unmute.
Oh yeah.
Is he on?
I don't know. I can't. I can't hear him.
Yeah, I see his hand.
I will write on the conversation. Maybe you can see it. Wudong, we cannot hear you. Mm-hmm.
I think he's plugging in.
Oh yeah. Okay. I cannot hear anything. I don't know about you.
No, I'm still not. At least my screen does not show him muted. So
Yeah. Wudong, can you hear us? Yes. That's strange.
maybe if he takes his hand down.
Maybe he should write his question in the conversation, and Laurent, you could just read it, maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see if I.
Oh, he's sharing the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know what happened now, but
Yeah.
Wudong, you still. Do you have a microphone? Well, Edouard, do you have any idea about how we can resolve this issue? No?
No, I don't. I think the best way is that Wudong just write down his question in the conversation and someone can read it and share it with everybody.
Yeah.
I can hear crockery. I mean, I can hear dishes banging. Maybe he's.
Well, okay, but we can continue to discuss anyway. And Wudong, if you want to write your question on the conversation, we can read it for you. And is that okay? Can you just say something on the conversation?
I think he just left the conversation. Professor Wu, tried to it. He has a microphone. He has as you saw a working kit, but
Yeah.
it's not to work. As you can see, also it was unmute, so he should have been able to talk. But so I don't know. I will try to figure out with him what is the issue. I'm one of his students, so.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's it.
So so we were talking about the martial art efficiency, and I was wondering, because this conference is about martial arts, religion, and spirituality, and the relation of the mutual influences and relation between martiality and the religion and spirituality. But what is the role of a belief in efficiency, in martial arts efficiency? Do we have to believe in something to be efficient? And that's I mean, it's also related to the Xu Xiaodong case. I mean, because we are believing that what we are practicing, it's maybe the most efficient, the most the best way to fight, and etc. And it's maybe a little bit more rational than that. And I was wondering what place have the belief, the fact of believing in something in our daily practice of martial arts. So I don't know if we can put into question this. I know it's a little bit complicated, but
I mean, maybe this is the question of belief. I mean, I guess I agree with you on that, but from the religious perspective, I have an article that will come out at some point on the martial temple in Chinese history. But it's not very much about belief. It's very much more about the imperial construction of what it is to be an ideal martial figure. But that said, the construction of what that is, I argue in the article to some extent, is based on the novels. Because the Ming Dynasty novels, suddenly Guan Yu, who was not in the temple, after the novels, suddenly he becomes a martial exemplar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all of these people in the Shuihujuan suddenly become put into the temple. And they were actually rejected earlier. The emperor in the Sung says, oh no, these guys are terrible. So that's a different level of belief, I think. You're talking about. You have to have some sort of self-confidence in your practice if it's going to be effective. I think what's interesting about the Martial Arts Studies Conference, to me, is in the participants, is that most of the people at this conference, so to speak, are actually martial artists. And so when we talk about these things, we have all tried to do them, and we have all thought about these things, and because it's a physical practice, the stakes, to me at least, seem higher when your teacher says do this, and sometimes you have to believe them to try it, and if you don't believe it, you won't try it. But because when it goes wrong, you get hit or you lose, it seems like it's much worse than maybe when you're in graduate school and your teacher just tells you you're stupid. Sorry, that's my experience. The religion part is very interesting to me because, and I come back to Olivier's point about the performative aspect and the superhero-ness, because when martial arts works, if it's efficient, it is magical. You know, I once had someone, you know, I was rolling with them and they were new and I went the direction they hadn't even imagined. So for their minds, I sort of disappeared. And then I was then I was in some position, and you know, how did that happen? And if you practice it enough, it's not belief, right?
Yeah.
You know. But the beginning, but we all want that. We want to become magically efficient, and that's what we really, and that's why Xu Xiaodong's demystification. And right, it's been done in many. I mean, I assume we've all read Ben Judkin's book on Wing Chun about how Yeman, was demystifying the coaching and demystifying the martial arts, but we still want him, and then he gets remystified in the movies. He becomes a nationalist hero. He becomes invincible. But if you couldn't become invincible, would we do this? And you know, some of you are very young, so you might still think you're going to be invincible, and maybe you will. You know, I'm old enough that I know I'm not going to become invincible, but I still, I wish I had achieved that level of mystical, of magical efficiency, where I could walk around and, you know, I know I can just, you know, and then. But is that the same as religion? Because when you bring religion into it, if you talk to religious studies people, you can never get them to define it. You know, nowadays, every time you say to a religious study, and the reason why I say this is I just went through this. I asked my colleagues in religious studies to define religion, and they sort of said, "Oh, look at that," and then they would run away. None of them, they wouldn't define it, and they refused to define it, and so then we take martial arts, which we haven't defined, and religion, which we haven't defined, and belief. I'm supposed to be an academic. I'm not supposed to have any beliefs, and now we have our Taoist center in which there is nothing, and the nothingness defines us, and maybe in 10 or 20 years, I'll become Taoist enough that I'll be comfortable with that. But I think Paul is already there. You know, that's really theory is just the Taoist nothingness at the center of things. And maybe I'll come to accept that. But I'm still hoping for some sort of greater response to that, because we're still looking at people doing things. We're reading texts. And the texts more so are fixed, and I'm just not. I guess I'm not satisfied. So I don't know if you're all satisfied. That's fine. It's just me. But I keep feeling like there must be some concrete things. And that's what I keep looking for in all of this. And I feel like you guys have given me pieces of it. That's why I was very interested in it because I feel like everybody has said things which are in their own way concrete. And I'm struggling intellectually to grasp this because you all said things that I recognize. I guess that's my point. Everything that everyone said on this panel, I could recognize. I could see it, I understand it, maybe not as well as I should, but I could see it and I could understand it. And I'm trying to fit it into my intellectual world in some way, but instead of it coming together, I'm fitting them into separate boxes that are in other places. So, you know, Olivia's stuff I take and I put in my film studies stuff, and Aaron's stuff. Oh, that's easy. That's Ming, and that's military, and I'm putting everybody into their little boxes, but they're not the same box, but they feel like they should be. And like I said, I'm not willing to just sort of throw Paul's book into the middle of it and say somehow they relate, and then, you know, wave it off.
If I can go back to the original question for a moment, of Laurent's question, I think belief is important in martial arts practice in a way. But if you want to believe that your martial art is effective and it's useful for you in a martial way, then go and learn some military rifle practice and police gun shooting practice, you know, because in the 21st century, if you take a sword in your hand and want to learn how to use it, there's no point in believing in it's effective or not. On a smaller level, when, for example, you are learning sword fighting, and you want to believe that, I will say a HEMA example, you want to believe that Fiora dei Liberi was really a master who knew how to fight, and when you read his book, all the teachings are true and correct, and you can learn fighting from it. So there, you need some belief, because you will never know if it's true or not. You will never know if he was really a great swordsman or not. But is it important? Is it important that he was really a great swordsman if his knowledge is effective and true martial art? I don't know. I think most of us does it for fun. And if you enjoy it, and if you can develop in it and know yourself better through the practice, I think it's worth it. So you just have to believe in it that the practice is good for you. And if you have some kind of other beliefs in your martial art practice, like you can be invincible, or if you take it in a religious way, I think it will mislead you. It's my private opinion, of course. You can argue with it. But I'm a huge fan of demystification. Yeah. I think we should look at things as they are and get rid of the myths. And we can research the myths and write about them and know more about them. But we have to admit that they are not the reality, but they are just cultural phenomena. And I think this is the key somewhere in the topic of belief in martial arts.
Yeah, it's true, and maybe it's about what we are believing in, because, for example, if we take the traditional martial arts example, we are somehow we are believing in a system. But if we compare it to the modern sport of boxing, for example, if we look at some champions like Muhammad Ali, for example, he was believing in something, like was believing in God, and for him it was a real strength. I mean, a real force, energy for him. Before the fight, during the fight, and after the fight, he was praying all the time. And I think he was not essentially believing in his system in boxing, but he was believing in something bigger than what he was practicing. And that's why I was wondering the particular role of believing in something in efficiency. Is it believing in a system that makes you efficient, or is it believing in something that's even bigger than what you are practicing? The problem is not the problem is not the techniques, it's not the form, it's not the method, but is, as I was trying to explain in my welcome introduction, it's about the intention that you put into your practice. If you are really I don't know how to say. Maybe you take anyone, a great champion of modern sports, modern fighting sports, and if this guy was doing Tai Chi, maybe he will be good. He will be good because it's not about the system. It's about what he is as a human being, and I don't know if you get my point, but
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
I think Olivier was had his hand up before, so.
Yeah, I can try and answer about the belief. I think about the belief is a social utility of the myth of martial arts. By social utilities, I want to say a thing. The importance of the myth. The practitioners continue to transmit at the others. At any moment of a practitioner's is arrive a moment who the person must choose to continue or not to believe in the myth.
Mm-hmm.
And at this moment, it's not important that it's true or not. If the myth is effective, but the importance really is the participation of the practitioner at this myth. By example, the practitioner researcher like us continue to consider the myth fascinating. By the deconstruction, by the intellectual way to understand the martial arts, and we decide to continue transmit the element of the myth at the others because we have the how to understand the thing. We think that all the elements of the myth is a thing important to transmit at others by another form. In the practice, in the intellectual way, when we writing about martial art in books, in a issue, in other way, but the important is the social utility is transmission of the transmission at the martial arts in many forms.
Mm.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my first appearance for an English conference. By the way, so my funny video, I'm helped by a friend who projector, a cinematic projector. This is an explication for the the funny way.
It was great to watch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think
Yeah, I
Edouard,
enjoyed it too.
I think Edouard had his hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't have any answers for you, but just more questions. When I was hearing you talking about efficiency, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the relationship between efficiency and codification, because I think I'm a practitioner too, and I've many times been in front of beginners doing moves that I couldn't react to because I was so, like, I have learned some patterns to react and to be efficient. So is there a kind of absolute efficiency which would rely on a kind of universal use of the body? Or this efficiency is always relative? Because when you learn techniques, you learn some patterns and some way of reacting, some way of moving. And so, yeah, could you just talk a bit about this relationship?
You know, you raised a really important point. Stanley Henning, who to my mind is really the pioneer for all of the things we're doing. And I had many phone calls with him. I never actually met him. My wife got to meet him very briefly in Hawaii, and he said, martial arts is a very individual art. And so we always have this issue of what we can do individually versus what some art is. And what we get seems to be, as you know, it's this kind of somebody codified someone was a good fighter, maybe naturally so, and found some efficient moves. And then someone said, could you teach me? And he said, okay, so in this case, I do this. So the person went, okay, it doesn't really work for me. And I think because we've all practiced, right, if you do a style, you find out that there are some things which you do very well and some things you don't do very well. And your practice becomes very individualized. And that's how you get up to, say, I will arbitrarily say this, black belt. And then you get to black belt, and then they say, oh, okay, now you have to learn the rest of the system, not just what works for you, and begin to teach it to other people. So I had a private lesson yesterday with a jiu-jitsu instructor, and I've been doing this a long time, and I said to him, well, I want to learn the technique fully, every nuance, every aspect, because he said, well, you know, when I teach it to someone who goes to tournaments, you learn it this way. When you teach it to someone, I don't do tournaments. So he said, I said, no, but I want to learn it. And he said, when I teach it to mixed martial arts fighters, I teach it completely differently, because you wouldn't, you know, some positions, if someone can punch you, are not a good position to be in. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, it's perfectly fine. You know, if you're in, for those of you who practice, if you're in half guard bottom, it's fine if you're in jiu-jitsu, but if you're in MMA, the guy's hitting you in the face. So you don't want to stay there. And I said to him, though, but now I'm at the stage where I want to learn everything. Not even necessarily that I'm going to practice it, but I want to learn to become intentional and to understand in everything I'm doing what choices I'm making and every cell. But and I'm going to keep doing this, and that's great. How do you write that down? How do we talk about it? You know, his game is very, that I chose that instructor to do privates with because he's young, but I think the way he practices will be more consistent with what I do. A young, powerful person isn't going to help me as much because, you know, they're just going to say, okay, now I use power. But the art is bigger than the individual, which I guess is what I feel like we understand the individuality very well and what we can get out of it, right? And we can say, I'm having fun. If I'm not having fun, I'm not going to continue to do this. How do I get from me having fun to me learning things that are not what I do, to me learning a system which is bigger than I am, and then representing it, because that seems to me to be, I've been working on something for a long time, but it's about the question of, someone said to me once that you have to be able to make, when you see a movie, but when you teach, you see it is legible. So you see a movement, you can see it. And that's, movies are all about things that, I always said, jiu-jitsu will never be a good movie, because, or even it will never, real jiu-jitsu is, they keep trying to make it into an interesting spectator sport. It's not, because everything is, it's not legible. It's not, you can't see it. But then we have to, the next thing is we have to write about it. So we at every stage are moving from the individual practice to a general practice to a clear practice to then writing about it. And so the efficiency, where is the efficiency in there? The efficiency, and I mean, I would ask the question is, okay, if you're not doing it for self-defense, self-defense is a very narrow area, and a lot of people who do it for self-defense are not having fun. But you have to believe it, right? Because why do you believe the guy who you go to self-defense from? Why do you believe that person that it's going to work? I'm always afraid that, and I knew someone who she had taken a self-defense class, and she got herself into a situation which could have been very dangerous, because she was convinced that she could fight, and I was horrified, and nothing happened to her, but so that convinced her that she was right. And so, she took a self-defense class, and she confronted some guy in Taiwan who had hit his wife, and she was, and I thought, oh my God, why would you do that? But she said, well, she took a self-defense class, so she could fight. So there's your belief. She took it once, I don't know how many weeks of class she had. And so I think most people who stay in martial arts, we have a better idea of our limitations. I don't know, many of you are younger, so you don't. Over time, you have to, what is the idea of belief? And if it's religious, I mean, a lot of fighters, you always see them, they win, and then they go, and you say, well, is it religious to beat people up for a living? And if, is it God who decides whether you won or lost, or is it your training? These are really significant questions.
Yeah.
But how do you, I mean, I think we all know when we exercise that if you're feeling good, you do more, it works better, you're more efficient, if you will. And if you're not feeling good that day, but then if you are training, I guess the difference I see in all of this is that when we do scholarship, when we do research, and we are speculating about the past or about the present and we don't have a proof about whether it's efficient. But when we go in and we train, particularly if you're in an art where you spar or you roll, you find out fairly quickly, whether that worked or not. But sometimes you find out, sometimes you do something that worked on that person that day, and then you try it on someone else and it completely doesn't work. And that's where your belief comes in, and you have to confront the issue of, is it a total failure? Was I wasting my time? Did I do it wrong? Do I have to go back and fix it? Or, I mean, and we confront this, we send in articles, right? And some anonymous reviewer 2 says, this is terrible, you should leave the field, you're a horrible person. So, I mean, the older I get, the more the psychological game becomes important, and belief. I'm not a religious person, so I don't go to a religious belief. But can you be efficient without? Can you be efficient without belief? Is efficiency? I think we all agree here. Perhaps, maybe I'm putting words in. We all agree it's not just physical. And so I think that is where martial arts studies comes in, right? It's and if you will, I see Wudong there now. You know, with Tai Chi, we have a belief. There's a mental part, a psychological, for some people, a spiritual part that is part of the physical practice. And that you can't have the physical practice without, you know, we know that it's not just a movement, right? There's an intentionality. And without the intentionality, we are inefficient. And if we have our intentionality correct, and even if that intentionality is a lie, even if we convince ourselves that we are better than we are, it can still work better, even if, you know, we get lucky. So that's, I think, but it's that intentionality that's so hard, and whether you consider it to be psychological or spiritual or religious, we're talking about this intentionality, and the intentionality of it being a martial art and not being basketball.
Yeah.
But I think the basketball players have their intentionality. You know, they have to believe they're going to win. We just confront it because it's combat. And so then we're trying to come up with excuses to justify our practice of this very weird art. You know, that now it's easier now. It's more mainstream now than it used to be. But, you know, boxing in America is still not really a very acceptable academic practice. Yeah, I mean, so maybe that's where I'm uncomfortable, because we have to get at this issue of intentionality. You know, what makes it a martial art? Our intention. And then how do we justify it to other people?
Yeah, right. I just, there's someone, I mean, I can see the name because it's a W. Not W, the Y, yeah.
Y, Yannick.
The Y, yeah. Yannick, sorry.
Yeah, it's Yannick. Hello, everybody. Actually, just 1 minute. So what I will do is that I'm in contact with Wudong, Professor Wudong, and he will try to talk via my microphone to talk to you guys, if that's okay for you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Let's try to it.
Okay, everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's very good. It's my computer is very bad, but mine is very kindly. So I heard everybody speak very good, also very clear. But I speak also very clear. But my mobile is no go. Sorry. Today I think I'm very happy with everybody together research. Is Chinese martial arts, Tai Chi, philosophy, maybe combat, everything. I think very important today is I want to speak my opinion. I want to talk is why Tai Chi have fighting, but Tai Chi movement very slowly and soft. Why? Because before many persons said Tai Chi want to teach the rich person like Peter, very king, very the queen, so the body not very stronger. So change Tai Chi slowly. I think this is a big wrong. Because in Chinese philosophy, everybody knows the Taoist person, Buddhist person, and everything. It's from Taoist means it's a Chinese name, 上善若水. This means you, for human being from junior grew up, should be very stronger, very hard, very high. So China philosophy Tai Chi Chuan come back like junior, so should be the like junior moment, more soft, more slowly. So I think Tai Chi have a combat, but over animal fighting. Before in China, martial arts history, the same like now you can watch jiu-jitsu, maybe like boxing, wrestling, same is very hard is fighting. Then the 2,000 years ago, China have the Taoist person think, philosophic, put in the Tai Chi, and 300 years before, like Peter speak like Ji Xiao Xin Shu, like Yu Da Yu, make many is beautiful and very science, the fighting moment, China name it means 全是 put in the Tai Chi. So in China, Tai Chi Chuan have philosophy, meaning, and the fighting technique together. Make it from animal fighting due to the human being the silver fighting, like push hand. So this is why China Tai Chi have many the fighting moments, but not like boxing to fighting. Make it a very special sports moment, push hand. So now I think some people little mistake. Want come back Tai Chi to like animal fighting. So like before talking in China have Xu Xiaodong and Ma Baoguo things. I think this no need to talk because it's not worry. It's a very low level thing. So I think it should be understand Chinese philosophy, also Tai Chi special moment, also Tai Chi how to do fighting. It's like it's not animal, like friendly, like Shendo. So Tai Chi push hand have fighting meaning, but very, very high level. Also give you new deer. New deer means you like water, like maybe I with Oliver, maybe Peter together push hand, make it like one person, means it's 天人合一. So this is my dear. So today I don't have many time. I want to know my dear. Also, I think everybody watch my video. Yes, no.
Yeah.
Peter, do you watch my video?
Yes, of course.
So also, I think Oliver, before you to do many the Tai Chi fighting moment in the YouTube. Yes, no?
Yes, YouTube.
Yeah. Do you know? So today I think it's not too much time. Now I introduce my idea. I said Tai Chi have fighting, but different animal fighting. Tai Chi have is sports competition, but not like Olympic competition, like China push hand. This is my idea. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Wudong.
Thank you. And thank you, Yannick, also for the logistic.
My student very clever, very smart. So the change.
C'est
Because I live in a very safe country. I cannot speak too much. Okay, do you have a question?
Sorry.
Do you have
Have
question?
question?
He asked if you have any questions.
Oh.
No question.
Maybe I have too many questions about Tai Chi.
Yeah.
Most of my questions about Tai Chi, though, are historical, not physical.
Yeah.
Um,
I need to answer Peter. So if you look at Tai Chi, it's not very difficult. Example, you can see my finger.
Yes.
Problem. You can see my finger. Yeah, you look moment, not very difficult. Yeah, you look. But if you for inside put power to finger, then the link all whole body is Tai Chi like Tai Chi ball is not easy. So Tai Chi give you very absurd. You look simple, but if you do difficult, but sometimes simple, sometimes difficult. But for future you can forget easy and difficult because like you love. This Tai Chi like love. Okay. I hope next time together, maybe together training Tai Chi, because is everybody I think very smart. So it's Tai Chi give smart people is more smart.
Thank you very much, Professor
Thank
Wudong.
you. Because now I know what's my student is mobile for many. So I want to stop my speak. Thank you so much. I hope see you next time with me together training Tai Chi, talk China philosophy, also push back. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yannick. Thank you, Hei-Yin. Okay, I close my mobile. I can listen. See you. Bye-bye.
So, yeah, maybe Peter, you want to add something, or someone else?
I think to someone else, I talked a lot.
Well, I think if I can add something, Professor Wudong, you just said that we don't have to talk a lot about Xu Xiaodong because for many reasons. I think as researchers we should talk about him a lot, actually, because we are not defending any system or any martial arts. We are just trying to understand some phenomenon, and I think it's a big opportunity for us to observe that actually, how should I say, Xu Xiaodong, for example, I think it's a good thing for martial arts. It's a good thing for martial arts, even though we are a little bit disappointed watching this video of Tai Chi master getting how to say, lost again. Yeah. I mean, you understand me. Yeah. So, but I think it's a good thing for traditional martial arts, because it helps us to put into question the concept of efficiency, and also it tells us a lot about our relations with the tradition. And yeah, that's. I don't know if you want to add something, but.
I think someone else should add something, because we are confronting this question of tradition.
Yeah.
Back to your issue of religion. What's the difference between religion and a cult? And sometimes it's just how long it's been around, and sometimes it's just whether it's been accepted or not. And so, if you follow, I expect you've all also seen the no-touch martial arts people, and there's that one in Japan where the no-touch master, and he puts up this money and he's throwing his students, and then this guy comes in and boom, and the old man is shocked. And so I think for most of us, we thought he was a charlatan who was deceiving people, and then you realize the old man believed it. His students had convinced him that he could manipulate people without touching them, and when someone came up and just hit him, and so is it a cult then? I mean, all these words have. So we want tradition to have positive meanings. Tradition in the positive sense. And then we have innovation in the positive sense. And these are in conflict. And religion in the positive sense, if you are religious and you have positive values, not just a researcher who sees it as some kind of phenomenon, but there are religious people who think religion is good. But then they say, oh, those people are cults. They are not really religion. They're just, or they are the listening. They have the crystals, or that's superstition. And so I guess I feel like we are trying to establish martial arts as, there are some aspects of tradition that are good, but it shouldn't just be stuck. There are some aspects of spirituality that are good, self-development, self-cultivation that are good, but not deception. And it's this intentionality. But if you think you are invincible and you are never proven wrong, how will you ever... and it's only a problem if you start teaching other people. But if you... I mean, I think some of us have, maybe some of you are better at this. When I was young and trying to get dates, and it was not working. And there would be some guy who seemed to be able to do it, and he wasn't beautiful, or he had the attitude. He was very good at getting dates. And you say, why? And I never figured that out. And then I got married and it didn't matter. But in martial arts, we are why are you doing it? And that can, and it's such a big practice that why I do it has changed over time and keeps changing. It always seems, but I'm almost cult-like. My daughters have black belts in Taekwondo, and because that's the sort of thing I was interested in, so they did that. And I didn't push them to do other things. Is that, why? Yeah, I mean, Aaron's,
Yeah.
I think this a little bit leads us back to the question of codification that Edward mentioned, that we have to be very careful in the field of martial arts, that what do we want to codify and what not. Because if there's a good technique that works in a specific context, of course, we have to codify it because it's an essential part of a martial art. But if, for example, we want to codify the view of the master who established that school, his view about the world and how he taught about everything, is it really necessary for that martial arts system? Or is it just a tradition that we can remember, we can mention it, but we don't have to follow it because we have to find our own way, and it's not necessary in the practice of that specific art. So we have to be very aware of the difference in parts of martial arts systems and traditions which were codified because they are essential parts of the system, of the tradition, or they were only codified because it happened somehow, because it was a historical necessity or there was some political background behind it. So I think these are the questions of codifications maybe we should consider when we look at martial arts and martial art culture. Sorry, I speak very broadly and mention these great ideas. I just try to think together with you and about these ideas and topics. So I'm really interested. What do you think about this?
You will make a lot of people very angry when you talk about martial arts, and you trust me. I've many people got very angry about stuff I said that about history, not tradition. And for some people, the traditions are very important. and I am not a confrontational person, but it seems that people were very angry to, when you say that, say, Shaolin is not the source of all martial arts in China, and people got furious. I mean, just and so if you ever, the strangest thing for me as an academic, I wrote a book that was academic in my mind. The academic reviews take 1.5 years, 2 years to come out, but most books I write, no non-academic reads them. And so the martial arts book, it got immediate martial artists saying he doesn't know anything about history because he says that Shaolin was not the source, or Zhang Sanfeng is, not the source of Tai Chi Chuan in the Song Dynasty. And people, if you undermine their traditions and say, look, there's no historical records for this, they say, well, but my teacher told me this. And Yip Man, Yaman, he wrote the whole Yim Wing Chun story out, and it's nonsense. I mean, it's historical nonsense, but he wrote it in the 20th century, and you can see it. It's online, and it's been translated. And people say, well, but Yip Man wrote it, so there it is. It's fact. You say, well, but he wrote it in the 20th century, and he was a great martial artist, but he was not a historian. And for some people, because most of us, thankfully, are not testing our martial arts in real combat, we are relying upon our myths about our teacher or about the art to justify and convince us to practice. And so when someone attacks that, they attack some of our intentionality, and some people who are practicing, who are trying to do this, to be authentically Chinese and to be somatically Chinese, to embody Chineseness. And how do you get away from that? If you tell someone that, if I can go back to food, I say, Chinese food today is very different than Chinese food 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. And some of it's the same, but it's different. And if you tell someone from Sichuan that chili peppers came in from the New World, and Sichuan food was not like that before, contact with Mexico, it's inconceivable. How can you have Sichuan Thai without La Jiao? It's impossible. And so martial arts also changes. But for some reason, tradition is and the political tradition is easier to get at. I think the Xu Xiaodong story is very important. It's been repeated, and it's easy for us to get at nationalism and the modern construction for governments. It's hard for us to get at the individual justification. And that's what for me is the troubling bit. And that's what I have been correctly criticized for by several, some Chinese scholars who said, the nature of martial arts changed in the late 19th and early 20th century. It is different now. It is what we consider martial arts now as practiced by individuals, not what was practiced in the army, when sword fighting was a military skill on par with shooting. So what we're doing now is different. And so the point of that, something changed in the modern transition. And tradition became something else. And that seems to me to be the problem, because I'm a pre-modernist, so I can very easily ignore modern. But then I don't talk to other people, which also isn't the problem for me, but sometimes I go talk to people. And so then the question is, how do we fit this modern conception? Because we're all practicing in a modern. We are all still practitioners. So how does this not tradition connect to a tradition which is invented, is written down, maybe not written down, is transmitted. How far back does that go? There's no Sung Dynasty technique in what we do now. I'm probably sure about that. Is there Ming Dynasty technique? Possibly. Is there late Qing Dynasty technique? Very likely. But does that matter? And it's back to why are you practicing? If Tai Chi practice makes you a better person, if it makes you more healthy, if it makes you stronger, if it makes you happier, that's a good thing. Is it reflective of a mythical founder of Tai Chi's? I don't, if you need that tradition, that's the thing that I can't get. And some of you are sociologists or you're working on these things. It's that belief practice in the modern that seems to me to be hard to get at, more so than history. And I don't usually say that modern studies is easier than Chinese history. That's what I was waiting for you guys to solve.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter, for the clear comment. It's 2:30 now. I think the discussion should end at 2:30. Should end now. But if you want, we can extend, and we can continue to talk. Or because I have another panel at 3. So I can just leave and you can continue to talk if you want.
Just is possible last intervention from Wu Laoshe?
Yeah.
That's okay for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I come again because I love everybody. I love martial arts. I love philosophy. I love Tai Chi. So I want to talk my second opinion. Why I said no need to talk Xu Xiaodong case. Because if you train in martial arts, you can very clear understand Xu Xiaodong with the other Lele competition should be Xu Xiaodong winner. Because Tai Chi for combat, hinge there. Example, Tai Chi for fighting like a human being. But Xu Xiaodong do something like a dog beat. So if you for competition or beat, of course dog winner. So this is no need to talk. But need to talk why Tai Chi have very slowly, but combat, but no combat. This is very interesting. Because if you compare in the world all the sports, should be the fast, stronger, high. Only Tai Chi makes too slowly, too low, too coordination. So this is, I think, human beings are very, very smart. Because the font, if you want good luck, you should be come back like Dao speak. 反者道之动，弱者道之用 means you should be come back you like junior, so you can grow up but no older. So this is why I think Tai Chi give you new deal. Not only you see fast, high, stronger. Should be come back you soft law and coordination. I think for future is develop very fast. You watch it now. Everybody uses the mobile, but mobile sometimes doesn't work. Very bad. But the peer person very good, friendly, because you have many car, big is building, so you have a very, very the modern life. Pay attention. Anyway, have problem, dangerous, like water, like a car, traffic, many things. So how do you change yourself, make you very balanced, make you really happy? Tai Chi give you a new deal. Example, today I'm very worried because I want to meet everybody, but my computer doesn't work. If I'm before, my character very angry, but now I know very angry because I studied it. Make me very quiet. I think how to do. So my very good student Yannick and Heiyin helped me change way. Okay, remember change, very important change. I not only one way. I can change the side. I can keep my always happy. I'm not angry. Maybe I'm angry, but I'm started teaching more not angry. So now I want to give every teacher the really honest suggest. You are big part in teach. Give you a new year, give you a new happy, give you new and long love. Thank you so much. I think this topic teach more important for human being. Thank you. I think you have okay. I speak very good. Yes, no? Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
very.
Okay. This means very good. Okay, Peter.
Thank you very much. It was very clear.
Very friendly.
Russia.
Okay, thank you so much. I make a joke. I'm very candid. Okay, see you. Bye bye.
See you.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, I vote for me going and getting breakfast. So
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you all.
Anyway, we have a few more panels today. So if you have time, I will put the link of the panel in the chat, in the general panel chat, and then you can join if you are free. It will be good to continue the discussion on another topic.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but it was a
Thanks.
great pleasure to have Professor Peter Lorge as a discussant in this panel. I had the pleasure to meet him last year in Chapman University for the five martial arts studies conference. It was the number 5, on the relation between martial arts and politics. And today it's a great pleasure to meet you all also. Olivier Bernard and Aaron Smoggy. I wish we could talk about a little bit more about your presentations, but we can do it maybe during the other panels if you want to add some comments, and thank you for also Edouard for the to being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. So
And thank you to all. Yeah.
yeah, thanks. So see you later, I hope.
Yes.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
See you. Thank you. Bye.
you. Bye.
It was great talking to you today.
Thanks.